Welcome to everyone. My name is Elżbieta Antczak and I am from University of Lodz. I represent the Department of Spatial Econometrics, the Faculty of Economics and Sociology. First of all, I would like to thank you for your invitation because it's a great pleasure to have an opportunity to present the piece of my research here. The title of my presentation is Do Ideas of Green Growth Really Matter in Europe? Spatio-Temporal Analysis. My presentation is divided into some parts. Firstly, in the introduction, I will give you the definition of green growth. Secondly, the ideas of green growth and the connection to the sustainable development. And it leads me directly to the point of decoupling. Next, I will tell you the aims and data of the analysis, the indicators I chose, and methods I used. And I will present some results and finally, the conclusions and directions of further research. According to OECD, the green growth definition is it is about fostering economic growth and development while ensuring that natural assets continue to provide the resources and environmental services on which our well-being relies. So the main ideas of green growth are low carbon economy, resource efficient economy, maintaining the natural asset base, improving people's environmental quality of life, and realizing economic opportunities associated with green growth. So, what is the connection between the green growth and very popular sustainable development theory? So, green growth is not a replacement for sustainable development, but is a subset of it. But it leads me to the main idea of the research and idea of these theories, decoupling. Decoupling assumes to break the link between environmental degradation and economic development. And what is more, it requires increasing economic output while reducing negative environmental impacts. And finally, it gives high priority to more sustainable use of natural resources, consumption and production in economy. So, looking back to the title of my presentation, Do Ideas of Green Growth Really Matter in Europe? The Spatio-Temporal Analysis, I will give you the aims of my research. Firstly, I would like to analyze the level of realization of green growth in European countries. Secondly, to compare this realization. Thirdly, to measure the impact of spatial interactions on the scale of green growth in Europe. And finally, to verify the decoupling theory in each region separately. The data include the time span from 2004 to 2012 and 32 European countries. To control, to measure, and to monitor the progress of the green growth realization, one should choose the appropriate set of indicators. And in my research, I created the set of simulants, for example, which includes the area under organic farming, the share of renewable energy, the protected terrestrial area. And I created the stimulants set, which includes, for example, CO2 emissions, waste generated, or material flow accounts. Next, the economic side of my research is described by the GDP per capita in constant prices. So now I would like to describe some methods. And for example, to monitor the progress of the green growth realization, I chose the set of indicators that I have presented. To analyze the level of realization of green growth in European countries, I chose the standardization and zero unitarization method. To compare the realization of green growth, I applied just some statistics. To measure the impact of spatial interactions on the scale of green growth, I constructed two spatial weight matrices and calculated the global Morans and Lisa indicators. And what's about the weight matrices? So the simple one is the close distances matrices, the first order of neighborhood up to the 420 kilometers. And I applied this simple matrix. And to describe the not only the local spatial interactions, but also the global ones, I constructed the 10th order of neighborhood matrix, which describes the spatial autocorrelations up to the 2600 kilometers because, for example, of the emissions of the pollutions. And what else? The most important, to verify the coupling theory in each region separately, I applied the geographically weighted regression. The average values of the calculated indicator of green growth indicates that the greatest leader of green growth are Sweden, Norway, UK, Italy and Croatia. And in the time span, the anti-patterns of green growth are Ireland, Estonia and Finland. Looking at the rate of the green growth, we can see that the highest positive rate of green growth in 2013 to 2004 took place in Ireland, Spain, Sweden and Cyprus. And the decrease was noted down in Germany, Denmark, Netherlands, Turkey and Bulgaria. To measure and verify the impact of spatial interactions on a green growth scale in Europe, I calculated the Moran's indicators of spatial autocorrelation. And these were calculated separately for two different spatial weights matrices. And based on the results, for both matrices, we can see that the green growth is characterized by the negative Moran's index values, and it just means that locally the green growth displays the tendency to polarize, and it means, for example, in the case of Finland, that the level of green growth is low and it is lower than in the surrounding countries according to the spatial weights matrix. And the opposite situation is in the UK, where the level of green growth is higher than in the surrounding countries, according to the weights matrix. And the exceptions are Italy and Switzerland, where the level of green growth is high, and also they have the positive impact on the values of green growth in the surrounding countries, according to the spatial weights matrix. The completely different situation takes place in the case of GDP per capita, because the Moran indicators are positive, and it means that locally the countries have the tendency to cluster. And for example, there are countries with the high level of GDP per capita, and they are surrounded by the country with also the high level of GDP, and they have also the influence on the value of GDP in the surrounding countries according to the weights matrix. And also they are countries with the low level of GDP, and they are surrounded by the also countries with low level of GDP, and also have the negative influence on the level of economic development in the surrounding countries, according, of course, to the weight spatial matrix. And there are some spatial outliers in the case of the weight matrix of the farther distances, and there are some countries with the high level of GDP, and they are surrounded by the country of the lower GDP per capita. The significant spatial autocorrelation and the correlation between the green growth and economic growth, GDP per capita, for example, are the basic assumptions to verify the theory of decoupling. So, the tool which includes all these assumptions, I mean the spatial interactions, the correlation between the two processes, and it makes the estimation for all countries in the same time is geographically weighted regression. In that model, we have the calculated measure of green growth as a dependent variable, and as an explanatory variable, we have GDP per capita. And these are the results of ordinary last square and the GWR. We can see from the table that we have more effective number of parameters in the GWR. We have the lower value of archaic information criterion. We have the higher correlation coefficient, the higher coefficient of determination and adjusted R-square. And this R-square is also statistically significant. Finally, we have results of two estimations. One model is with the first order spatial weights matrix, and the other is with the farther distances spatial weights matrix. And we can see that in two models there is no country where the relation between the GDP per capita and green growth is statistically significant because the p-values in the case of two models are higher than the value of the significance level. So we can only say that the decoupling theory is introducing in the European countries. So, what are the general conclusions and the directions of further research? Firstly, there are leaders of green growth in the time span, such as Sweden, Norway, Italy, UK, and Croatia. However, there are also their followers, such as Ireland, Turkey, and Bulgaria. In decoupling theory is being introduced in the most of analyzed countries. So in the future, I will use the spatial panel data models in such analysis and other explanatory variables and different weight matrices, economic or ecological, and wider set of variables to the synthetic measure. Thank you very much for your attention.